Today I'm going to do a little introduction real quick. They'll say hi in a second. Today I just went to visit David. I try to visit my friends once a week, different ones. And I have a good fellowship with David Martin. But Jimmy was out. I was texting him. I said, you know what? I'll pick you up, Jimmy, and we'll all go together and see Pops. Because in the old days, when me and David were doing the halfway house, New Way halfway house, sometimes we'd just gather. That's all you would do. You have a little fellowship. And it's one of the things that helps me, is when we share, when we talk. And so today it was a spur of the moment, but we're going to talk a little bit. Me and David were having a good talk at his house. Some of the scriptures we were discussing was how Jesus says in the Gospel of John, I will bring all things to your remembrance. The Holy Spirit will bring all things to our remembrance, whatever he has spoken to us in the past. And David was sharing, if he wants, he can talk about it, part of his testimony, how as he was reading in the AA book and he was beginning recovery, God was kind of showing him not so much new things, but reminding him of the things God showed him before. And sometimes in our life, it's not so much we need a lot of new information. Sometimes it's us applying the things that we already know. And in the book of James, it says, if any man be a hearer of the word, but not a doer, he deceives his own self. He's like a man who beholds his face in a mirror and goes away and forgets. So a big part of recovery this is kind of like a Christian meeting here, AA type thing, but a big part is apply the principles that you've already learned. The other day I was with Pops here, and I looked at his AA book, which is a large print, and I was just sitting here, even if somebody just reads the basic 12 steps without even having to go through the whole book, just reminding yourself of those things is a benefit. Now, Jimmy, Pops, David, what do you want to say? Anything?
I don't have anything right now.
Okay, Pops, when's the last time you saw David?
It's been a while. How long?
About a year, maybe,
Yeah.
since before Charlie died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim.
April.
April 15th.
Okay, so this is the first time you guys had a little...
Yeah, so that's about a year.
Okay. Jimmy, you told me one time you heard David give his testimony
Yeah.
at
SATF.
SATF, and you remembered
It was inspiring.
it had an impact on you.
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
I'll never forget that.
Glad it helped you.
Yeah.
What is SATF? People don't know.
Well, it's a in-house program that the court sends you to, and it's usually part of somebody's probation that they have to go and do a certain amount of SATF, and then they have an extreme probation afterwards, a year's worth. It's designed to get you off of your paper early, but if you don't do well there, they'll just add more time to it. So you have to be very.
Sometimes it's the last step in getting out of prison.
Yes.
They make
Yes.
you do the night. Everybody there's there for drug and alcohol related crimes.
Yes.
So you go there and speak to somebody, and you're doing AA or NA. You already got you got a captive audience of people that need to hear what you have to say.
It's sponsored by it's county sponsored.
Yeah, it's a state, probably something they got a big
grant or something.
a grant to do, yeah, and it helps.
But it's good because it's
real good, I think.
trying to prevent guys from relapsing.
And they got 9 months of having a meeting every day and doing their lessons and getting a sponsor and working the steps.
Yeah.
They got 9 months where they're introduced to the program of AA or NA.
Now you used to go every 2 weeks
Yeah.
to speak as a speaker for AA.
Yeah. And I really felt blessed, like I was telling you earlier. Sometimes I just didn't want to go, man. I was tired, sleepy, didn't have no gas, or just didn't want to go. But then I would force myself to go, and then I would leave there feeling all really good and uplifted.
Okay.
Because God used me, I know He did, you know. I was speaking, it wasn't even my words, it was His words coming out of my mouth. And it was like I was on a roll. And that hour took about 5 minutes. And people would hug me, and some people cried, and, you know, and it really felt good.
Yeah. You had a few guys a few young guys you were going to sponsor.
I did. I tried to sponsor them, but I'm too old to go pick them guys up and take them to outside meetings late at night when I'm in bed, and I couldn't really do them justice as a sponsor. So I was there. I told them I'd be their temporary sponsor until they could get somebody else. Because I just couldn't do justice like I used to. I used to be one-on-one with my guys, and I would see them every day and take them out to lunch or take them somewhere, take them to meetings. And I couldn't do that with these guys. There just wasn't enough time in the day. Or it seemed that way to me. I probably was just too lazy and should have done it. You know?
But it helped you when you got back
Yeah,
from
especially when I saw Jimmy D like 6 or 7, 8 months later, and saw him at a meeting in town. He came up and hugged me and said that he had heard me in SATF and that he was still clean and sober. Man, that was a little pat on the back I needed. Boy, I was down at SATF because I had stopped going for a little bit.
Oh, now I have a question, Jimmy. I never got a hug from you like that. When's the last time you saw David? It's been a while since you've
Oh
seen
yeah,
him.
it's been
We
a long
used to
time.
see each other in the bluff at the meetings there.
Okay.
We have an AA meeting every day there.
Yeah, like a club meeting.
Yeah, it's a good meeting down
The
there.
Anchor Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went with David to the Anchor Club once or twice. I
used to
remember-
go every day.
I remember one day, I'll tell the story because it's more important to be honest than to present like a fake image. But one day,
Ain't no fake images there, is it?
one day, this was in the beginning of me recovering. I might have had, I don't know, 6 months clean or whatever. But I felt I was just a lot of mental problems, nervous wreck. And I called David Martin all the way on the other side of town. I said, I don't feel good today. I need to go to a meeting. And David, he drove all the way, picked me up. He had a different car he had at that time. Actually, it was a car from a brother of a mutual friend by the name of Jude. And Jude had a brother named Chris. Chris was in our halfway house, and Chris died. That's how much little people know each other around the little group we have, friends. But David picked me up. We went to the Anchor Club, and everybody said, "We haven't seen you." So it was just, you know, David going out of his way. He didn't have hardly any gas or no gas, but he.
Those were the best times. Those were like the good old days.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it could still be the good old days again now if we just get off our ass and go do them, you know.
Well, that's kind
If you
of
coming to get me today, you know, he hijacked.
yeah.
We're gonna go down to the pharmacy, and he goes, "Well, let's go by and see Jimmy D. Let's go by and see Pops." Usually I'm not up for all that, but today, for some reason, I gave in to him. I'm just going wherever the Spirit leads me today.
It was somewhat. That's right. David's correct.
He set me up.
Because sometimes when we were doing the halfway house, not too far from here, I would go and see the guys that me and David were working with. And sometimes David would be not feeling well, physically sick, and I would tell him, I said, "David, I'm doing a meeting today at New Way," which is the halfway house David started, and he asked me to be like the pastor for it. I said, "You need to come over." And whenever he would get in a little meeting like this, and a few other guys were there, and when we were done, I dropped him David off. He said, "I feel so much better, John." I said, "That's because we got to give it away, but we got to share." And that's kind of how we wound up being here. Pops, have you ever sponsored anybody, Pops? I don't remember if
It's
you...
been a while since I have.
Okay.
I've been getting through like he said. I got too old where I just didn't have a car anymore. I had a van, I did,
Okay.
but I don't
He's
now.
got a reputation of being an elder in the AA community. He's got a good reputation, and supposedly, before I met him, he was really sponsoring some people and
He liked it.
really doing a lot.
Yeah, I have a friend who I sponsored, and then he moved. I had a little extra cabin, and when I lived in Dallas, I sponsored him.
Okay.
And then I put him off was free.
Okay.
And,
Sort of like with Charlie Boy.
he had a bad experience with another, but with me, he didn't. sober,
Any
they
of
just
these
weren't.
elders that I
He
meet,
saw that I just wanted to get sober. And I had a bicycle and I couldn't even ride it. And he rode my bicycle and he got a job. He stayed sober and saved quite a bit of money. $27,000, I think, a lot of money.
Wow.
And then his parents both died in Moostown, Ohio. And he went back. Once in a while he does come back to Texas to see me. He's still sober today.
Okay.
He got married and has 3 or 4 kids.
So that would be like one of your success stories, Pops, that
And
you
one,
will.
another one was Cecil and Jay.
Okay.
Cecil would come to Preston AA meetings and he wouldn't say nothing. And he even people would talk to him.
I remember you telling me
And
this
his-
one.
And then one day, I go over and I talk to him, and I says, where are you staying? And he said he was staying out on the street. I said, well, that's where I still had a little extra room. I got a place to go stay for a while.
Yeah.
And he went over there and stayed.
Yeah.
And he saw a guitar. I had a guitar in there. I couldn't play it. He'd get up and start messing with it. And he tuned it and he started playing it. And that boy could play the guitar better than anybody I ever heard.
yeah, sets a mood in the house.
Uh-huh.
You-
And
yeah.
then he finally said something. And he didn't have a tongue.
Oh, yeah?
Pops
That's why he
told me
didn't
this
talk.
one.
Well, he couldn't talk. He could, and I
That's why he didn't talk.
That's
Uh-huh.
right. I
And
remember.
what happened, his family were members of a Pentecostal church, and him and his brother didn't have a tongue. They'd said a cuss word, and his parents had cut his tongue off.
Oh, well.
Said, you know, it says,
Pentecost is a tough bunch, huh?
uh-huh.
Hardcore.
And but he got sober, still sober. Went to New York. He finally went to piano tuning school.
I remember.
I paid for that, $300 for a piano tuning school.
Huh.
And he went, and he was very good at it.
Yeah.
And now he's working for some
Weapons.
group that does concerts. They always want the piano tuned.
Yeah, they need constant tuning because of the weather and
He tunes,
humidity.
he tunes the guitars and the pianos before he
You know Maurice? He's a piano tuner. Maurice?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What is the key, Pops, and David as well? The guys that you all have sponsored, I've never sponsored because I've just worked with guys and just with the ministry over the years. But I often ask the guys, sometimes Jimmy, he said this recently, and I try to not challenge it, but sometimes Jimmy will mention, there's such a small percentage, John, I'll tell the guys I got about 3 years and a couple months sober. And Jimmy says, you're very rare, John. There's a very small percentage. But what I try to say is, actually in the Bible, we have the promise that whoever calls on the Lord will be saved. I try to encourage and say, believe. Don't believe that the odds are stacked against you, but believe that God can work with us. But what is the percentage, Pops, that recover and stay clean?
Well, at the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, 80% stayed clean.
80 to 100, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But they were the low-life winos on the street
Uh-huh.
that they wanted to be clean. These other people, they kind of want to, it's just uncomfortable, it's in their way, and they
Well,
don't
now,
have the desperation.
what's happened to our society, I don't know, but they say down about 10% will go to Charlie's place and other treatments
Or less,
to make
yeah.
it.
Okay. But David,
Our
1
society
or 2
changed.
out of 100 is what they told me when I went to Charlie.
that's
And I
what
couldn't
Jimmy
believe
said.
I was the one. It was me and one other guy. We're still the only ones clean from that whole graduation class of 100 people. Me and this guy named Steve.
And then, I don't know
You-
how many of us blood on him died.
David, some of the interesting, well, I've known David Martin for many years, but I was more friends with his 2 brothers, Andy and Huey.
You liked him better.
I knew them for many
I
years.
avoided John.
But one time, John David used to avoid me. But one day, his brothers came to me and said, my brother wants to talk to you. That's how we began working together and all. But David's experience, maybe some of the interesting experience, like you were in that meeting, and that one guy gave the story, and it was about your son, who
Yeah.
was, you want to share any of the interesting ways that,
Yeah, well, there was 2 times that God showed himself to me in Charlie's. I was there for 56 days, and I was struggling with my steps and all, and really it was step 4. And I was looking at my resentments, and I had a son that got ran over and killed. He was 15 years old. We were drinking together, so I kind of blamed myself. He was drunk, went out the road and got ran over, and I wasn't talking. I hadn't shared about him to nobody, and I hadn't told my sponsor about him, and I hadn't told anybody about me killing somebody. So I was holding that in me, but it needed to come out, and God used a police officer, Corpus Christi police officer. See, earlier that day, they had picked up my son drinking at a school party and took him and dropped him off at his grandparents because I was out drinking. I wasn't home. I had custody of him. But he tried to walk from my grandparents to my house and got ran over right down here on Holly Road, drug under the car and killed a real gruesome thing. And I had not dealt with that. Yeah, my wife went crazy, had a paranoid schizophrenic manifest in her, and I had gone through all that. I really hadn't had time to
Process it.
yeah, what happened to Danny and all, and it hurt me so bad, it just drove me to drinking and doing drugs more. Well, at this meeting with all the people in here was a Corpus Christi police woman, and she was up there talking about picking up people from the streets and alcoholics, and they take them down and process them. And the girl said, hey, I want to know why when I got picked up, I said I wanted to go to Charlie's. Why did they have to bring me down to the city jail and process me and all that, and then end up the next day or two taking me to Charlie's? She said, well, I'll tell you why. A number of years ago, in '85, there was a young boy that was picked up drinking. So she kind of got my ear. She said he was 15 years old. I said, that rang a bell. And then she said he was drinking at a school dance. Well, I started to realize she was talking about my son. She said, and we let him off. We're supposed to bring him in and process him, protect him, and give him back to his parents or something, but we let him off at his grandparents. And he tried to walk home and got ran over and killed. His father sued us and got $100,000 from the police department. And I held my hand up and I said, ma'am, I said, that was me. And she goes, oh my God, are you Mr. Martin? I said, yeah. She goes, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I said, nah, it's all right. It's been a long time ago. I'm not. And everybody was looking at me, and I said, it's all right. And she goes, that was your son? I said, yeah, Danny. And she goes, that's what we call it, a Danny kind of a thing, you know, and that's why we do it, because of your son. So he had meaning in dying. They quit doing that. They started processing these people, like that girl that was complaining. Well, I went back to my dorm, and I didn't realize that it hit me so hard, and I started breaking things in my room, and I could get kicked out of Charlie's for doing that. But I was breaking everything, and then I went to hit the wall, and I thought it was sheetrock like you got here, but it was cinder block wall. It was cinder block wall. It was plastered over, and I hit that and just about broke my fingers. Yeah, so it caused me to fall on my knees and start crying and come to terms with that. I don't know how long it took, but I got over that with God. I confessed it all to Him and got Danny behind me and went through it. And then I shared it with the whole 100 people. I went back the next day and shared it all with them. So I shared it with more than one person. Of course, then my sponsor, with God first, and then at least one other person, it says, human being. But I did it with a whole bunch. And so that's what got me through.
That was a major way, that's some
God showing
experience.
Himself. He wanted me to get that. That was part of my fourth step, was going through all those memories.
People wonder.
I was holding that one back.
People wonder why I kept sticking to Charlie in spite of what he did.
Yeah.
It become like a unconditional love thing.
Yeah, you have to have
When
that.
you get unconditional love, you know God is taking over you because you've
Yeah.
been through.
And it was hard to keep it. I'd find it.
Unconditional love, a human being can't do it.
Yeah.
That God has to be with you when you can unconditionally love somebody.
I'm having a hard time with that right now. I had it more than I have it now. It's now like I've been clean so long. Why can't you stay clean? Why do you have to steal my dope every time with my pills, my medication? Because you're dope and my girlfriend's taking it. And I can't kind of understand it because I can't remember what it's like to be an addict anymore because God's just freed me of it so much. So I have to go back and recollect the beginning when God helped me and I was strung out and the things I did then, you know.
What was, David, that was the one really kind of interesting experience. What was the other one that you...
Well, the other one was about my best friend that I had killed. And this is really weird because I had held that in. I had not shared it with my sponsor. And I had a counselor that we had a little men's group and we all shared in there, but I never brought that up. And one day he showed up to the class and he goes, "Hey, next week we may not have a class. I may show you a little documentary that I recorded on TV." He said, "It's about prisoners that have gone on to death row, and one of them's from Texas here, and he's in Huntsville, and it's 25 years of his life, a documentary, and then he was executed, death by lethal injection." And that reminded me that right before I went into Charlie's, I never read the newspaper, but for one day outside of Timmons on the little park bench was a newspaper. It was laying open, and it said, "Willie Campbell executed at midnight last night." Well, that was the boy I was in jail with when I killed that guy. He killed the guy the same day. And they tried to give me death by lethal injection, and I got off. I got mine acquitted. But he went on and found guilty and went on to Huntsville for 25 years. Well, I didn't realize, but PBU or whatever did a documentary on this guy. And here's the counselor that has it. And I didn't say the name, you know, right away, but I said, "I guess I need to confess something here." And okay, go ahead. So I told everybody about me killing my best friend and how I met this guy that had killed someone that night, and that we were both throwing up in the commode. You could smell the alcohol, and we were crying, and we became friends. We were locked up together a long time before, you know, I got a $1 million bond. My lawyer paid it, got me out, and helped me get ready for court, and I got off. And Willie didn't have, he had a court-appointed lawyer, and of course they sent him down the river. So I told them, I had wondered about him. I said, "It's ironic that I picked up a newspaper. I never read the newspaper, and there's the name, Willie Campbell." And my counselor said, "What'd you say the name was?" I said, "Willie." He said, "That's the guy on this tape." And I said, "Oh my God, that's God." You know what I mean? That's a God thing. How could that be that he's got him on that tape, the same guy that I was in jail with?
And how did you, God worked things out with you, David? But I've shared this before, me talking, but the lawyer, who was your lawyer that represented
Percy
you?
Foreman. He's the
Percy Foreman?
Yeah, he's well known. There's books about him in the library. He says it never ever represented anybody that wasn't guilty, and that he never lost a murder case.
And he represented
he represented Lee Harvey Oswald when he assassinated President Kennedy, and then when Jack Ruby assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald, he became his lawyer too. So, and he was with a lot of gangsters out of Galveston in the old days. There was a lot of gambling, a lot of gangsters. And he was involved with that. And he had a pair of diamond slippers that he had one of his girls, he had made, and they were worth over $1 million. They were insured. And that's what he used for me to get me out. He placed those slippers as collateral to get me out of jail.
Okay.
And anyway, then he's never lost a case, and we went to court a year later, and I got off.
Yeah, I remember. I've shared your story, David, on the little video.
Yeah.
So,
and he doesn't take a case for less than $100,000.
but your mom got him to do it.
My family in Essex.
Yeah.
Clint Murchison was
Yeah.
involved, Clint Murchison, and that lawyer.
We only took them big cases.
Yeah, and that lawyer they called Racehorse Johnson.
Yeah, with the fringe,
Uh-huh.
Indian leather coat on. You see, my mother, bless her heart, she didn't have nothing but a little trailer house in Liverpool, Texas, a little town of about 30 people. And that's all she owned was a little 50 by 100 lot and a little trailer house on it. And she went put one of her 2 cotton dresses on and took the bus to Houston because she heard Percy Foreman was the best lawyer. My uncle had told her he was the best lawyer. And she wanted a good one for me. And he was at the top of this big high rise in Houston. He had the whole floor up there. And she went up there and she said, "I'm here to see Percy Foreman." I said, "Well, do you have an appointment?" No, but I need to see him about my son." "Well, it'll take 6 months to get an appointment to see him." She goes, "No, I got to see him today." And so, "Well, I'm sorry, Mrs. Martin, you'll have to come back." She goes, "That's okay, I'll wait." And they were saying, no, you can't wait." She goes, "That's okay, I'll wait." So she waited all day and all night. And about 10 o'clock that night, he came out of his office and he saw her sitting there and he talked to the secretary a minute. He came over to her and said, "Mrs. Martin, I understand you want to see me." And she goes, "Yes, I want you to get my son out of jail. John, he's in jail charged with murder." And he said, "Well, Miss Martin, let me ask you, did he do it?" And she goes, "Yes, he did kill the guy, but he didn't murder him." And he said, "Well, Miss Martin, you know, I charge a pretty high price for my services." She goes, "Oh, that's all right." You know, she opened her purse. She goes, "I had this." And it was the title to her little camper.
Okay.
You know, the whole thing wasn't worth $5,000. And he looked at it, looked at her, and he told the secretary, "Man, go put this in the safe for Miss Martin and get the paperwork going. Let's get her son out." And so I was out the next day.
Now, David, eventually you had a concrete business. You did very well in business, made a lot of money,
Yeah.
and then you got into meth.
Meth took me down, yeah.
Okay, you lost
Well,
lost
I had,
everything.
I had rental property, I had jet skis, had all my heavy equipment, I had a camper, Winnebagos, and boats, and 4 rental houses, plus my little ranch, and a new wife and 2 baby kids, and I walked off and left all of them to go live where Jimmy D's at in the Bluff with my drug dealer that I had known 38 years before when I rode a motorcycle with the Banditos as a prospect. He was a prospect too.
But don't mention no names. I tell Jimmy this all the time.
He stayed with them. I won't never mention his name.
Yes,
Don't
yes,
worry about that.
yeah.
He's like my brother.
Yeah.
He stayed with them and became president. And so he had the super connect for the meth, and as long as I was with him, I had all of it. I mean, he gave me a key to the compound right away. Everybody was jealous of me because.
And those are the years when I used to see you on the street,
Yeah, and I
though I
avoided
wasn't.
you because I was
But you
living for the devil.
and you looked like basically a street bum.
Well, that's
basically.
after I lost everything I owned.
Yes, after you were on the street.
Yeah, then all I had was a bicycle and I stole it, you know.
And you told me that before you yourself were on the street, you used to see the guys where we live.
Yeah, and
You hated
I
that.
tell them they were low-life pieces of shit, that they didn't really want a job. You know?
Yeah.
They go to work for me doing concrete if they wanted to, but none of them ever got in the truck.
I'd have got in the truck.
Hello?
I'm
Hello,
glad.
John. Hello?
I'm glad that David. That might be it for today.
Yes, I worked out there at JFK for 15 years. You was always out there to hell with it.
I think we went long enough, guys. I wanted you to see. Today was just a little fellowship that was unplanned, but it benefits. David's going to feel a lot better. A lot of times when I visit Pops, David, whenever I visit guys that are maybe a little down in the dumps, you see me on the videos depressed. But when we give ourselves away, we interact. That's a benefit. You heard a couple of stories that David shared that I talked about before. Next time I'll have him talk about how he met Spanky from the Little Rascals. Just interesting stories. David met him once. But the main thing I think for us, Jimmy's not doing as well as he has in the past. Some of us are clean, have a certain amount of clean time. But I want to instill hope. I don't like, sometimes David shared it as well, that they teach that only a few % make it. But my Christian perspective on recovery or deliverance is whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. God promises to deliver us from things. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, because it's a struggle, but it's a gift. And I want to instill in some of the guys, don't think the odds are stacked against you. There's a verse in Romans, if God be for us, who can be against us? Okay? He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him freely give us all things? So God's on our side. And that's the hope I want to instill. You want to say any last word, Jimmy?
Just that I need to do some more praying.
Okay.
Definitely.
God blessed you with a very nice apartment, which is just like this, but Jimmy's is right over there. Actually reminds me of the old halfway
I
house.
got company.
Okay, we got people coming in, all right? Everybody, God bless you. I hope you enjoyed this little fellowship.